My family constantly belittled me, calling me a useless failure because I supposedly couldn't afford a proper gift for my sister. She mocked me endlessly in front of everyone, until my mother opened the small box I brought and realized it contained a rare $1 million limited edition diamond ring. The moment my sister saw it, her entire face froze in complete shock. The evening had started with cheer. My family had gathered in the grand living room of my mother's house, decorated with shimmering lights and a long table filled with food. Platters of roasted chicken, bowls of steaming rice, and trays of desserts lined the table. The air smelled of cinnamon and butter, and the sound of glasses clinking together filled the space. Everyone was dressed in their finest. My sister wore a sparkling silver dress, her hair styled perfectly, her makeup flawless. She loved being the center of attention, and tonight was no different. My cousins hovered around her, complimenting her outfit, laughing at her jokes and feeding her ego. I sat at the far end of the room, my chair slightly apart from the rest. I wasn't invisible, but I wasn't included either. Their laughter carried across the room, but none of it reached me. I felt the familiar sting of being the outsider, the one they tolerated but never truly embraced. The atmosphere was cheerful, but beneath it was a sharp edge. I could sense it, the way eyes flickered toward me, the way whispers grew louder when I walked past. They were waiting for the moment when the spotlight would turn cruel, when my presence would become the evening's entertainment. It didn't take long. My sister spotted the small box in my lap and smirked. She raised her voice so everyone could hear. "Is that your gift?" she asked, dragging out the words with exaggerated disbelief. "What is it this time? Coupon? Maybe a second-hand trinket from the flea market." The room erupted in laughter. My cousins slapped the table, my aunt covered her mouth, pretending to hide her amusement. Even the younger children giggled, not fully understanding but eager to join the chorus. I felt my face grow hot. My hands tightened around the box, my nails pressing into the cardboard. I wanted to disappear, to melt into the floor, but her voice kept pulling me back into the spotlight. "Honestly," she continued, her tone dripping with arrogance, "why even bother? You can't afford anything decent. It's embarrassing." Her words weren't just jokes. They were reminders of every time I had been dismissed, every time my worth had been measured against money I didn't have. Before I could respond, my mother chimed in, her tone colder than ice. "She's right," she said, shaking her head. "You should have thought twice before showing up with something so small. Look at your cousins, they know how to give proper gifts. You never do." Her words pierced me more than my sister's mockery. A mother is supposed to defend, to protect, but mine chose to humiliate. She compared me openly, listing the expensive presents others had brought. Designer handbags, gold jewelry, lavish perfumes. Each comparison was another blow, another reminder that in her eyes I was a failure. I glanced at her, hoping for even a flicker of kindness, but her expression was firm, almost satisfied. She wanted me to feel small. Inside, a storm raged. I wanted to shout, to tell them they were wrong, to remind them that value isn't measured by price tags. But I held back. Speaking would only fuel their laughter, only give them more ammunition. So I sat in silence, gripping the box tighter, my throat tight, my heart pounding. I forced myself to remain calm. I reminded myself that silence could be powerful, that sometimes the strongest response is no response at all. I looked around the room, watching their faces. My sister's smug grin, my mother's cold stare, my cousin's mocking eyes. Each one seemed certain of my weakness, certain that I had nothing to offer. But deep inside I carried a quiet strength. I knew what was inside the box. I knew the truth they couldn't imagine. The box felt heavier than its size. It wasn't just a gift. It was a symbol, a secret waiting to be revealed. As I held it, their laughter grew louder, echoing through the room like a cruel chorus. My sister leaned forward, eyes gleaming with anticipation. "Come on," she said mockingly. "Show us your little surprise. Let's all have a good laugh." I lowered my gaze, staring at the box. Their judgment pressed down on me, but I refused to let it break me. I thought of the journey that had brought me here, the sacrifices I had made, the determination that had carried me through. They saw only failure. I held proof of something greater. I sat straighter, my grip firm, my expression calm. I didn't need to shout, didn't need to defend myself. The box in my hands carried all the answers. The laughter around me grew louder, pressing against my ears like a cruel chorus. My sister leaned forward, her eyes gleaming with anticipation, and my mother finally reached for the box in my lap. Her fingers brushed against mine, cold and dismissive, as if even touching me was a burden. "Let's see what embarrassment you've brought us this time," she said, her tone sharp enough to cut through the room. The box felt heavier as she lifted it, her movements slow, deliberate, almost theatrical. Everyone leaned closer, their faces lit with expectation. My cousins nudged each other, whispering jokes, ready to burst into laughter the moment the lid opened. My aunt tilted her head, her lips curled into a smirk as though she already knew the punchline. I sat still, my hands folded tightly in my lap, my heart pounding but my face calm. The air seemed to thicken, the room shrinking as all eyes focused on the small box in my mother's hands. She hesitated for a moment, perhaps savoring the humiliation she thought was coming, then flicked the lid open. The moment the box opened, the room fell silent. Inside, nestled against black velvet, was a diamond ring unlike anything they had ever seen. The stone caught the light instantly, scattering it across the room in dazzling fragments. It wasn't just beautiful, it was breathtaking, rare, unmistakably valuable. Gasps echoed around the table. My cousins leaned forward, their eyes widening. My aunt's smirk vanished, replaced by stunned disbelief. Even the children stopped fidgeting, their gazes locked on the shimmering jewel. My mother froze, her hand trembling slightly as she held the box closer to her face. The arrogance in her expression faltered, replaced by confusion. She blinked as if trying to convince herself it wasn't real. This can't be," she whispered, her voice barely audible. But it was real. The rare $1 million limited edition diamond ring gleamed under the chandelier, its brilliance undeniable. The silence was deafening, the weight of their disbelief hanging heavy in the air. I turned my gaze toward my sister. Just moments earlier, her mocking smile had been wide, her laughter loudest of all. Now her face was frozen, her lips parted but no words escaping. Her eyes locked on the ring, widening with shock, then narrowing with something darker, envy. Her arrogance crumbled in front of everyone. The confidence she wore like armor shattered, leaving her exposed. She tried to speak, but her voice caught in her throat. For the first time she had nothing to say. I watched her carefully, noting every flicker of emotion. The disbelief, the jealousy, the desperate attempt to mask her humiliation. She glanced around the room, searching for support but found only silence. No one laughed with her now. No one joined her mockery. Her face flushed, her hands clenched tightly in her lap. She looked at me, her eyes burning, but I remained calm, my expression steady. The power she once held over me dissolved in that moment, replaced by her own shame. The silence didn't last long. My cousins scrambled to change their tone, their voices suddenly filled with awkward admiration. "It's beautiful," one said, forcing a smile. "Where did you even find something like that?" another asked, his tone dripping with false curiosity. "I always knew you had good taste," my aunt added quickly, her earlier smirk forgotten. Their hypocrisy was glaring. Just minutes earlier they had mocked me, laughed at me, dismissed me as worthless. Now, faced with undeniable proof of my worth, they stumbled over themselves to offer compliments. My mother remained quiet, her eyes fixed on the ring, her lips pressed tightly together. She couldn't bring herself to speak, not yet. My sister sat stiffly, her expression frozen, refusing to look at me. The shift in the room was palpable. The same people who had ridiculed me now tried to align themselves with me, desperate to erase their cruelty. But I saw through them. Their words were empty, their admiration hollow. I sat there, calm and composed, letting the silence stretch before I finally spoke. "I didn't need your approval," I said softly, my voice steady. "I never did." The words weren't loud, but they carried weight. I didn't gloat, didn't raise my voice, didn't demand recognition. My satisfaction came not from their praise, but from their silence, their inability to deny what was in front of them. Revenge didn't need to be loud. It didn't need to be cruel. It was enough to sit quietly, to let them drown in their own hypocrisy, to watch their arrogance crumble without lifting a finger. I looked at the ring, its brilliance reflecting in my eyes, and felt a deep, calm satisfaction. Not triumph, not pride, just peace. The power of silence was stronger than any words I could have spoken. They had mocked me, belittled me, dismissed me. And now, without a single word, I had proven them wrong. The silence stretched so long it felt like the air itself was holding its breath. My sister finally broke it, her voice trembling but desperate to regain control. "It's nice," she stammered, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "But honestly, anyone could have bought something like that. It's probably fake." Her words fell flat. No one laughed with her this time. My cousins exchanged uneasy glances, my aunt shifted in her chair, and even the children looked confused. The cracks in her pride were visible, spreading across her face like fractures in glass. She leaned forward, her tone sharper now. "Where did you even get it? You couldn't possibly afford something like this. Maybe you borrowed it. Maybe it's just a trick." Her desperation was palpable. The arrogance that had fueled her earlier mockery was gone, replaced by fear. Fear of losing the spotlight, fear of being exposed as the cruel one. She tried to claw back her power with excuses, but each word only deepened her humiliation. I sat quietly watching her unravel. I didn't need to defend myself. Her struggle was enough. My mother, once so confident in belittling me, now sat frozen. Her hands trembled slightly as she set the box back on the table, her eyes refusing to meet mine. She had always been the loudest voice in my humiliation, the one who compared me to others, who dismissed me as a failure. But now, faced with undeniable proof, she had nothing to say. Her silence was louder than any insult she had ever thrown. She shifted in her chair, adjusting her napkin, pretending to be busy. But I saw the discomfort etched across her face, the tightness in her jaw, the way her lips pressed together, the flicker of shame in her eyes. For the first time, she couldn't hide behind cruelty. Her power had backfired. The very words she had used to diminish me now hung in the air, exposing her own weakness. I waited, hoping she might apologize, might acknowledge the pain she had caused. But she remained silent, trapped in the weight of her own actions. The rest of the family scrambled to adjust, their voices suddenly filled with forced admiration. "It's stunning," one cousin said, his tone overly sweet. "You've always had such unique taste," another added quickly, as though rewriting history. "I knew you'd surprise us," my aunt chimed in, her earlier smirk forgotten. Their hypocrisy was glaring. Just minutes earlier they had mocked me, laughed at me, dismissed me as worthless. Now, faced with undeniable proof of my worth, they stumbled over themselves to offer compliments. I listened quietly, their words washing over me like empty echoes. Their admiration wasn't genuine. It was fueled by greed, by the sudden realization that wealth carried power. They didn't see me. They saw the ring. Their quick shift exposed them completely. They had no loyalty, no genuine love. Their praise was hollow, their smiles false. And I saw through every word. As the chaos unfolded around me, I sat in calm silence, reflecting on the moment. I realized something deeper, that true worth isn't measured by others' opinions, by their laughter or their praise. It's measured by resilience, by the quiet strength to endure cruelty without breaking. Their mockery had shaped me, carved resilience into my soul. Every insult, every dismissal, every attempt to erase me had built the strength I carried now. I didn't need their approval. I didn't need their admiration. The ring was proof, yes, but the real victory was my silence, my calmness, my refusal to let their cruelty define me. I looked at my sister, at my mother, at my cousins, and felt no anger. Only clarity. Their words had never been about me, they had been about their own fear, their own insecurity, their own greed. And I had survived it all. As the evening drew to a close, I rose from my seat, my voice calm but firm. "Cruelty may try to break us," I said softly, "but resilience wins. You tried to humiliate me, to erase me, to make me feel worthless. But I endured. And now I stand here not as your failure, but as proof that patience and strength can turn humiliation into victory." The room fell silent again. My sister stared at the floor, my mother avoided my eyes, my cousins shifted uncomfortably. No one dared to speak. I looked at the ring one last time, its brilliance reflecting in my eyes, and felt a deep, calm satisfaction. The diamond was more than a gift. It was a symbol, a reminder that I was never the failure they claimed. I walked out of the room with quiet dignity, leaving behind their hypocrisy, carrying only the lesson that had been carved into me. Resilience is the greatest inheritance of all.